Marcia. Thank you so much. My name is Ciprian Iacob. I'm the festival director from Bucharest Film Awards. And me, together with Genevieve Fieraru and Ileana Bîrsan, will be hosting the industry talk called Cercul, the Method. Is the 15th edition of Cercul. I think I'm gonna let Genevieve say a few more words about Cercul and what this means for Cărturești. Thank you so much for having us here. And after this, I'm just going to make an introduction for our guest today.
Oh, come on. I'm not Genevieve. I'm Ileana Bîrsan. Cercul is a place and experience where we try to get many guests that could talk about arts, but not only. It was about poetry, about film, about arts, about social humanities. It's the 50th edition, and we'll be here for another one. Thank you. Ciprian, introduce our special guests, please.
Okay, in order to avoid the very formal presentation, I'm just gonna have a seat until you begin. So this is gonna be a joint collaboration between Cercul and Bucharest Film Awards. If you didn't hear about Bucharest Film Awards until now, we are an international film festival mainly focused on bringing the network. So. As we have here our dear guests, Marcia Haufrecht and Robert Haufrecht with us, along with another 14 guests who, made us very fortunate, by coming here at the festival. They're coming from Japan, from Berlin, from Germany, from Sao Paulo, from Brazil. So they're from all over the world, and together with Marcia and Robert, they're making this festival grow, like it did, year by year. And this is why I actually wanted to open up this speech and industry talk right now, because they're coming here to share their knowledge with you. And to make it a little bit more, direct, we just decided to have this discussion in three. But at the same time, at any moment, if you have any question, just raise a hand, and they'll be, more than happy to answer to all your questions. Marcia Haufrecht, tell us a little bit about yourself in like 30 seconds, like a short bio. I think that's going to be better than me presenting you, but. It's going to be very, very hard for her to summarize all the things she's doing and she's done until now in 30 seconds. But you have 30.
Okay, let's say it's almost impossible since I'm almost 82 years old, so there's an awful lot to squeeze into it, I know a lady isn't supposed to say her age, but I don't care. Anyway, I was born and raised in New York, Manhattan. My father's father, my grandfather, was born here in Romania, which is one of the reasons I was really looking forward to coming. What? Mulțumesc. And Cublăceri. Yes. Okay. I'm not that good with languages. Fast version, I went to the High School of Performing Arts as a dancer. At the age of 6, I wanted to start taking dance lessons, so my parents gave me piano lessons, right? But then finally at 12, they found a place where I could have a full scholarship, and I started dancing. I went to Performing Arts High School as a dancer, this movie Fame with I went there. And when I got out of high school, I did a couple of Broadway shows as a dancer in the chorus, which I hated. And at a certain point when Bob Fosse said after auditions there were like 50, 100 people, and it came down to 15 people. They got rid of everybody. I was one of the 15. They only needed 12. He pulled me aside. He said, Marcia, I'd love to hire you. You're a wonderful dancer, but you're too short. At which point I said, that's it. I'm no more dance. I'm going to be an actress. And then I eventually studied with Lee Strasberg after 4 years of studying with someone else, where I didn't learn very much, but it was good experience. And I studied with Lee Strasberg for like 2.5 years. And then I auditioned and became a member of the Actors Studio. And I worked there for a number of years. And then at 40, I started teaching acting. So I teach, I act, I write, I direct, and now I paint, which I love.
And you swim.
Oh, and I swim. Yes, I did my mile today at the mall. How much over 30?
30 seconds now.
So I'll do mine in 10 seconds.
We're brother and sister, not husband and wife. Just so you
Yeah.
Yes.
Your turn, Bob.
Yes, brother and sister. So, let's see. I don't have to say that my grandfather's Romanian, since her grandfather's Romanian too. Okay, so I grew up in New York. I went to a tough junior high school where I got beat up a lot or robbed and things like that. Exciting life. And my father, our father, was a composer, and we had to learn a musical instrument. So as a kid, I wanted to play trumpet, just like Louis Armstrong, right? That was my inspiration. But I was very kind of shy and quiet and withdrawn, so they took me to a music school, and they didn't have a trumpet teacher available. So they said, do you want to play clarinet? And I said, I guess so. And so I ended up playing clarinet for about 5 years. And I was supposed to go to a very special high school like hers called Music and Art for music. But at that time, my parents, long story, but Columbia University, very famous college, bought up all this property and kicked everybody out of our building. And so my parents moved to New Jersey, and I kind of rebelled and didn't want to play music anymore. My one claim to fame is that in my music class we had a dance band, and the bass player, Eddie Gomez, is one of the most famous jazz bassists who worked with Bill Evans and so forth and so on. So that's my claim to musical fame. And then in high school I was very good in math, but I didn't understand physics. And I got kicked out of the physics class because I couldn't do the homework. And I was in what they called like a detention or something like that. And then I had this opportunity to take an acting class or the drama club, something like that. And of course I was influenced by my older sister who, took me to the Actors Studio, and I met these people who were famous, but I didn't know they were famous. And so I did Shakespeare and so forth in high school. And then I just sort of fell into acting. I went to college for a little while, did theater in college, dropped out of college. I studied professionally with a man named Michael Howard, who's a very member of the Actors Studio, does method, and that's where I did my first professional plays. And been struggling ever since, I imagine. And I always loved films. I would go to the movies. I would steal my lunch money. I wouldn't eat lunch, and I would take these two other guys, and we'd go to the movies every week. And so I always loved films, and I guess that stayed with me. And I never thought of directing films. We ended up, I eventually taught acting for a little bit, and I was teaching at acting for filmmakers at the School of Visual Arts, a famous art school that had a film department. And we worked together. It was her theater company. I was the managing director, and we did a lot of plays that we produced, we directed, we acted in. We brought one of the plays to Berlin. I've done View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller in Paris, things like that. And then I started, I don't know where it came from, but I wrote a little film script and put it away and forgot about it for a long time. And then we're in part of a workshop group, which is a great way to develop things. We have a small group of actors and writers, very professional. And I had somebody said to me, why don't you bring in that old script of yours? So yes, okay. You see. My older sister said to me. And I did, and they said, this is great, you should do it. You know, you have all these people from the film school. I said, okay, you know, and I had friends, so that's what I did. And I always had a very good visual sense. I did a lot of photography. Not that I'm a professional photographer, but I had a good visual sense. So we made a good film that got into a number of festivals. Marcia played a part in it. And then I did another film that's going to be shown on tomorrow night. And she played a part in it again, the same part. And now I'm developing a feature project, a film noir feature project. That is a lot of work. I am in the deep end of the swimming pool with the water over my head, but I will get to the surface. 40 seconds?
40 seconds.
Yes.
In this case, if you already introduced yourselves, and I think a little bit more into the discussion, I'm going to step aside and leave you do the talk. So.
I have questions. If you have now any time, I will start. Before talking about Lee Strasberg and the method and acting, in fact, I want to ask you about the films that you have here in Bucharest Film Festivals. We started with nowadays, and we go back in a way in Lee Strasberg's times, and come back again in acting and independent industry and the struggling of the actors to get parts and probably on other topics. But now I want to tell us about a little bit about your films now that yours was screened yesterday, and Robert's film will be screened tomorrow.
Right.
The titles are Marcia's film is Full Moon and High Tide in the Ladies' Room, and Robert's film is Subterranean Love, Ileana and Paul. A little bit about the films.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes.
Okay. My film, it's a short film. Well, relatively short. It's 34 minutes and 40 seconds. And yes, right. And it was, I shortened it from a feature. I have a feature that I would still like to do. I'd almost like to think of the short as a trailer for the feature. But it's based on a play that I wrote called Full Moon, High Tide in the Ladies' Room. And in the play, the whole play takes place in the bathroom of a bar, and it's all women. And because it tends to be a gathering place for women. You know, you go to the bar and with your friends, and somebody gets upset, and they run to the bathroom, and everybody follows like ducks to the bathroom, and we console ourselves. You know, a lot takes place in the bathroom that doesn't take place at the bar with women, you know. So that was the impetus for the film, for the play. And the play, like I said, all in the bathroom, all women. So when I went to film, I had to open it up, as they say, you know. So I went to different locations. I included people who are referred to in the play, like one of the women's boyfriend.
Those things called men.
Yes, yeah, and the main character's mother. The film basically revolves around the story. Basically, it revolves around a woman in her 30s, I'd say, who gets pregnant with a boyfriend who she's known for about 6 months, has lived with for about 6 months, and she gets pregnant and tells him, and he doesn't want, it's not that he's a bad guy, it's he's not prepared to deal with it. So the dilemma is, what does she do? Because she really doesn't have any place to live. She has no real focus in her life, no direction. And it's the dilemma what to do. Have a baby, don't have a baby, give it up for adoption, have an abortion. It's a question, and it's set in the mid-70s, 75, which is just a few years in the States after Roe versus Wade. So abortions have only been legal for like about 2 years. So there are a lot of protests, anti-abortion protests and pro-abortion protests, pro-choice protests. And the play deals both with that issue and about relationships of women to women, friendships, and how difficult it is really for women to commit to friendships with other women. Somehow a man often comes in between it. Whereas with men, most often their relationships, they with each other are stronger, I think. It's my experience anyway. So that's my film.
Okay. My film is called Subterranean Love, Ileana and Paul, in parentheses, because it's kind of a follow-up to a previous film that I did called Subterranean Love, which is about two adults who are lonely and are out at the same evening. This is not the film that you will see or is here now, but just as an explanation. And they're in the same area, and they end up on the same subway car at night, and they kind of eyeball each other a little bit, but don't talk. And they have these fantasies, these romantic fantasies about each other. And the fantasies I shot are in black and white. And then the woman gets off the train, and she looks at the train, and the man is pensive, and that's the end of the film. And during it, on the platform, and this came from an inspiration that I saw an Eastern European woman playing an accordion with a very faraway look, and this is who I chose to do it, even though she doesn't play accordion, but we found a wonderful accordion player.
You shouldn't say that.
I shouldn't say that, I'm sorry. Gave it away. I mean, you could tell that she plays accordion, of course. My father played accordion. Our father played accordion. Yes, and I don't know where that accordion is. At any rate, so that was the first film, and in one of the scenes, peripheral character, there was a couple having an argument in a cafe, and one of the actors who played it, I based the improv between them on who they actually were. And the actress is Romanian originally, Mihaela Mihut, and she lives in New York now. And so she had suggested to me that I do a follow-up with some of the peripheral characters from my first film. So I said, okay. But I had a hard time writing it because it wasn't an idea that I had thought of. So I had to create something based on what I know about them. Her character is more fictional. He was the chairman of the film and animation department at this school, but he really wanted to act. So I convinced him to be in my film, and he did a very good job. And he's an older guy who likes younger women and is lonely. And the film is really about people having illusions of what they want in terms of a relationship. And they both have baggage, so to speak, emotional backgrounds. And in the story, her ex-lover returns, throws a monkey wrench into it. They had a very combative, passionate relationship, and which is played by I didn't know it at the time, but a very well-known Greek actor, Stratos Tsotoglou, who's a big star in Greece, who was wonderful. And she ends up, the older man keeps asking her out, and they have platonic dates. They go to the movies, they go to dinner or lunch and so forth. So finally she gets so upset by this return of its lover that she runs to this older man. But it really doesn't work. They try to make love, but it just doesn't work. But they value their friendship. So it was a balancing act in terms of the writing, and through our workshop group I had a lot of feedback on it that helped me write it, and I feel very fortunate that I won a Best Screenplay Award at a film festival in New York last year because of the film. So that's what it is. And I have wonderful stories about the music and so forth and so on, but I'll tell you later.
You can see the movie tomorrow, and it will be a Q&A after the movie and more things. Okay.
Give her the mic. Bob, give her the mic.
To go back a little bit.
Someone has a question.
Yes.
So I have questions. The first one is a curiosity. So can your acting be more than you are as a person?
Can your acting be more than you are as a person?
Than you are as a person. So can you...
Yes. I think I know what you mean. You're always going to be your person, right? If you're playing, let's say, a killer, you're not going to go out and kill somebody. But you can play a killer. You can play somebody who kills. We have a rainbow of emotions in our being, and we have ways of accessing that to a certain degree. Some people come with certain things built in. Some people are naturally very aggressive. Some people are naturally shy, etc., etc. But with method, we have ways of developing those traits and finding the emotional life of the character. So I think that's what you're getting at.
My question was more like, can you be a great actor if you are not evolved as a person?
No. It not necessarily consciously or intellectually evolved as a person, but the great actors that I know, they are like genius, close to genius. They are so connected, their body, their mind, their spirit, everything. They're so centered. They're so within their body. I call it within your body. That's always there. They trust themselves, you know. They're open to all kinds of exploration. I mean, Brando's the perfect example. I think Marlon Brando is the great example. Though I think now there are many wonderful actors going. But an actor can develop so they can do work almost just as great as great actors. They can become a great actor. But you have to evolve as a human being. You have to be connected to yourself, I think.
Yeah. And the second question, so I'm playing a character right now, and my question is, how do I commit to it? Because there are some things that are, maybe they are not that familiar, or there are, but it's a situation, so it's a crime thriller road movie, where I'm playing somebody who wants to kill another person, and there are a lot of different emotions going on. And this is also the interesting thing, because it's not just angry, you know, it's not just anger. So there are a lot of different emotions. So my question is, how can I commit to that character and actually assume all those different emotions and actually being in that state with all those different things going on all at the same place, you know?
If you understand that whatever it is that you're feeling, the character is feeling it. You make that translation. You have to be so connected to what you are really feeling. Like, oh shit, I gotta do this scene now. You know, I'm not into it. I'm like all over the place. And then you ask yourself, this is my little magic bullet, you ask yourself, why might the character be like all over the place and not focused? You know, oh, because he's really scared. Even though he has to act, he's really scared. So, okay, so I accept it, but I'm going to do it. You know, it's taking what you have, because you can't use anything more than what you have or less than what you have. But it's taking that and molding it, which turns into the character, you know?
Just to piggyback on it, I agree completely with that. And I tell people sometimes that you really have to trust your subconscious, because your subconscious is going through these various emotions, what you're feeling, and don't try to alter it. Don't try to say, well, I'm feeling this, but I'm supposed to be feeling that, because you're feeling this. And I think sometimes that we read a part and things come to us without our knowledge about it. And so that I think that it's oftentimes just to, as she said, to trust what's going on, and as she said, to translate it into what could the character be feeling this, and why would it be feeling this?
I've noticed something with great actors. For example, I've watched Matthew McConaughey in True Detective season 1, or the second one is Colin Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great performance, and I noticed the difference between great actors and not bad actors, but amateur actors. I don't know how to call them. The idea is that the actors that you tend to forget and never hear about them again. So the thing is that they act just one emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are angry, or they are upset, or they are jealous, and that's really on the surface. But when I'm looking at a great performance, you can see that that person within a span of 20 seconds can feel 5 or 6 different emotions.
Right.
So my question is, how do you get to that point where you can do that, you know, where you can have a performance that's so nuanced, you know, without having an emotion just burst, you know, and just play to that one emotion, you know, like playing on a piano, just one note, ting, 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 because that's kind of easy to do. How do you get to that nuanced emotion?
By accepting what's happening with you, because with you, it's probably changing every 30 seconds. If you don't accept, if I'm frightened, and I don't accept that I am frightened, because the character's supposed to be very bold, you know, I'll never get to the bold in a true way, never. So I have to accept that. Once I accept that and turn it into the character's frightened, then I can get to the next step and the next step, and once you accept where you're at, it flies all over the place. That's my experience. That's what I think. Yeah. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. But it can take years to get to the point where you
trust yourself,
where you can connect with what's going on and not say, no, I can't feel that. No, I can't be there. No? Okay.
I'd like to say that tomorrow is a master class of acting on method acting, or acting if you say so. Mm-hmm. You could come tomorrow also to ask questions, more practical questions also here, but to know that it's a possibility, also an opportunity and possibility tomorrow also. I would like to go back to Strasbourg.
Okay.
Because probably in a few words, I'd like to ask you both of you about the theory and the practice of Lee Strasberg.
Okay.
In a few words, and then a few words. Yeah, I know that it could be a year to speak about this method, but then, if it's possible, to said to us some stories, practical stories, with your actors and your experience and expertise in different situations. Maybe it will be useful for the audience.
Okay.
But at the beginning, a little bit of history of this method.
Okay. To start with, the question you asked and my answer to it, Strasberg used to say, there's no magic bullet. And to my mind, I think what I just talked about is the magic bullet, is that connection with self and then turning that into the character, which he did do, but I think he wasn't quite sure that it was a magic bullet. He was very into the science of technique, of craft, you know. He developed his approach through Stanislavski's work. I have to just give a moment about Stanislavski, who developed his system for actors by questioning the great actors of his day, because he would see other actors. He was an actor himself, and he would see other actors perform, like he saw Duza, he saw Chalyapin, who were, to his mind, great actors, and he would see a moment, something happen, and he'd say, that moment when you were, you know, breaking down, falling apart, well, how did you do that? What happened? He said, and the actor would say, well, I don't know. It's just I remembered somehow when my father died and I had seen the lamppost, and, you know, and it just brought it back to me. So he understood that the access to life experience that would come alive on stage was through the senses. So that's how Stanislavski developed his system of sensory work, which is sight, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, and what physically touches you, like rain or snow or sand, or, you know.
And what you hear. And what you hear.
Yeah. And those there are exercises, a whole series of exercises. I mean, I think it takes at least a year of training to go through the whole sequence of exercises. And it takes years of practice, too, of applying it to the work that you do, but in classes. Because you have to, you know, it's like a baseball player or, you know, something that, a musician. You practice the scales and you practice the scales and you practice the scales. And the more you practice, the easier it is to just do it without thinking. And that's what an actor does, I think, what an actor needs to do, to practice the technique. It's, you learn a lot about yourself in the process of doing these sensory exercises, because it evolves. You know, it's kind of like Proust. I don't know if you know Proust. You know, his smell of the Madeleine brought him back to his childhood. You know, that's what happens. It pulls you into experience. So to me, sensory work is a tool that you can use to transport you physically, emotionally, behaviorally, so that it can awaken in you a belief that something is happening, so that you can behave, you can feel, you can think. Does that?
I would like to add also that because of the time element and the repetition of doing these exercises, what we call our instrument, us, the body, because you're the person, you're the character, you're going through the emotions. Just my own personal experience is that it helps you evolve personally. That how you respond to these exercises when you're 22 is going to be different when you're 42. That's what I find, that as we change, the work that we bring to it deepens, I would say.
But not just age. I mean, I may do an exercise with a cup of coffee or something, and one day it gives me one thing, and another day it may give me something else. But it connects me with something, you know. One experience that I had with Strasberg at the studio, I was working on Juliet, and I was doing the monologue before she takes the sleeping potion, you know. And she's really, like, afraid to take it. You know, she's like, what's going to happen? And so I was doing the monologue, and during it, Strasberg started talking to me. He said, what do you want to do? Because I had made a choice to work with, I made a choice to work with being on acid to get what it's like in my body, what happens to my vision, you know. And as I was working on it, I was kind of static, you know. I wasn't doing anything. And so he could see that there were things going on me, but nothing was happening. So he said, what do you want to do, Marcia? I said, I want to hide. He said, so hide. So I was like all over the place. And by the time I was done with the monologue, it went like a flash. I didn't know what had happened. And it was very exciting, and it was an amazing experience for me. And it's something that I started to base my teaching, so that I took what he had given me and went further than he normally does with people. He didn't often do that with people, but he did with me, and it just broke something for me in understanding. Because very often when people do the sensory work, and when he did the sensory, they would sit there and work with something, and like there was a disconnection between what they were experiencing and expression. Because that's what we do as actors. Even if it's film and you're not all over the place, it comes out. If you know what you want to do, and you can't do it because you can't go out of frame, but you know what you want to do, and the camera will see it, you know? So for me, the connection from to allow what your experience to take you to behavior, thought, to let it take you someplace, so that you're not disconnected, so that you're not clinically examining that smell, you know, that you're really, okay, now where does this go? Like that.
Yeah, I would just, for me, that was a hard connection to make. It was definitely not easy for me as an actor. I would have to sort of almost say out loud, because I knew I had impulse to do things, and sometimes I'd have to just stand there and say, well, what do you want to do? Talk to myself and say, what do you want to do? You know, and I say, okay, I want to do this. So oftentimes, for instance, when I would be teaching a sensory work on a place, where you go and you touch and you see and you smell and so forth and so on. And I would tell people, you can work on that picture on the wall, but I said, if you feel like taking the picture and throwing it out the window, you can go ahead and do it. That's an impulse. And then it's right back on the wall where it was. But it's hard. It's hard to...
It takes courage.
It takes courage, and it takes... Sometimes you just... You know, it's like practicing the scales. You know, go, wait a minute, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, you know, and so forth. And you sometimes have to talk it out to yourself before it starts to happen like that.
That my mantra as a teacher was that there were two things I'd say. Say what you're thinking. Tell me what you're thinking. Not what you think you should be thinking, what you're really thinking right now. And they'd say, oh, I don't feel very comfortable. I said, is it possible the character might not feel very comfortable? And it's magic. It takes you where you need to go. That's one thing. And my other mantra is do what you want to do. I would always say that in the middle. People would be doing a scene, and I'd say, do what you want to do. You could sit there and watch an actor, and they wanted to, throw something or kiss someone or hold someone. You could see it in their body.
Yeah,
you could
absolutely.
feel it. And they wouldn't do it, and I'd be sitting there saying, do it, do it, do it. And then I'd say, do what you want to do. And they would do it, and I'd say, I knew that that's what they wanted to do. So anyway, that's as a teacher, until you get to a point as an actor, a student actor, where you can do it yourself. But it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. An actor has to be willing to live dangerously.
I would just say that my experience sometimes, a fault would be that you read a script and sometimes you sort of direct yourself in the head. The script says this and this and this, and I'm supposed to be feeling that, and that. And so you start, I'm going to go down that road. There's that road. But, if a truck is in the way, you're just going to go right through the truck. And it just doesn't, nothing comes alive. So sometimes you read the script, you get some impulses and ideas, but then you have to say, well, wait a minute, is this my glass or that my glass? Okay, this is my glass, yeah. So that's what's happening at the moment. Rather than just saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get water and I'm going to drink a glass of water. It's a good, so how are you? So that's my idea of reading from the script as opposed to, there's a little bit of water left there, yeah, I'll take it. What did you say?
She wants the mic.
No, okay, no. Because you mentioned some work with individual, with sensory, with emotions. I want to ask you more about how to work with conflict between characters, with a partner in a film or on stage also. How do you work with actors when they are not alone? When you mentioned Juliet, but I want to explore a little bit when you work with two actors and three actors in a dialogue. When, for example, one of them is disconnected and one is present in the moment.
You deal with the reality.
And how do you work with them? That
one person isn't present and the other person is. And you mean
present in the moment.
You mean directorially?
Yeah. As a coach. Or...
Well, you can't turn a pig into a cow. Okay. So if the person is a pig, they're a pig. And especially if there's immediacy, if there's a time limit on things, you can't teach somebody overnight how to suddenly connect. You have to work with what you've got. As a coach, as a director, you have to take the fact that that person is disconnected, they're uncomfortable, they're not able to connect with someone else. So you have to use the fact that they're not comfortable, they don't believe in themselves, they don't trust, they're frightened, and work with that and use that in some way so that they accept that that's where they're at. It's like it takes time to turn red and blue into purple. Okay? You have to mix it. And to get the purple that you want, you have to spend more time, So it depends upon the time that you have. You have to know. Does that answer?
Yeah, it was in a way linked with what we've talk about a little bit how do you manage to rid of your masks as an actor, masks as a human being, because all of us have masks, and as an actor, how do you manage to get rid of them one by one or all of them?
Strasberg used to say that the easiest emotion is anger. And that's the first thing that an actor goes to, is anger. And the hardest emotion to allow to be visible is fear. So to get to the point where you accept your vulnerability, you know, and then the character may have ways of masking their vulnerability, and you decide which way the character masks their vulnerability. But I think all actors have to accept their vulnerability and find it and accept it. Strasberg, I've left out the most important thing, actually, about what Strasberg really added to Stanislavski, which was relaxation, which is the base of everything. And if you are not relaxed physically, mentally, you know, if you're not completely relaxed, like if you look at the great actors, I wish that fellow were here, they're so relaxed. They are so relaxed in their body, you know. There's not an ounce extra used than what's needed. So a good deal of time is spent when I work with actors on the relaxation. It may take about 20 minutes. You know, I mean, now I could do relaxation in about 5 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe 10, depending upon how busy I am. But beginning actors, it takes anywhere from 20 minutes to a half an hour that we work on relaxation. People get restless and everything. I remember the first time I did relaxation in Strasberg, he would test the relaxation, you know, lift the arm, drop it, the leg, drop it, and he had my head like this. And I'm like that, and I was a dancer, so I seemed externally completely relaxed, you know. He would do that, my arm would flop right down. But he saw something, and he said, "It's okay, Marcia. It's okay, darling," he would say, holding my head, and he'd say, "You can hate your mother. It's okay." And I started bursting into tears. It just everything. I didn't hate my mother necessarily. I won't talk about that. But the relaxation just opened everything up. The acceptance of the possibility of something opened everything up for me. So I was no longer resistant to who I was and what I thought and what I felt.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because when she said she started crying, that some people, when they hear the word relaxation, that they're just going to be in nirvana and fall asleep, and sometimes that happens.
Some people do.
But what often happens is that your emotional life, current going on, starts to bubble to the surface. So some people cry, some people get very angry, sometimes we have to punch the air, kick the air, whatever, allowing these things to happen, because we hold in tension, even if we feel like I'm sitting here relaxed, but you know, we still hold a lot of things going on with us. So that really deep relaxation doesn't necessarily mean that you're falling asleep, like you're had a sauna and a massage and you're just physically out. It's a way of getting in touch with what is going on with you at the moment, that you're so relaxed that whatever's going on is just there.
Let me say that for the first 2 years of studying with Strasberg, I was crying all the time. Every day I'd go into a pharmacy and I'd ask for something, and I'd start crying. It was an experience. But after about 2 years, it settled down a little bit.
You were really relaxed.
Huh?
Crying all the time.
Yes. Yeah, well, because I was working on being in touch with what do I feel, what do I smell, yeah.
So what's the difference between acting and therapy?
The difference is we examine ourselves for the purpose of creating art. Therapy, you examine yourself for the purpose of surviving. No?
They're quite close.
Life and art is quite close, but therapy isn't art and doesn't necessarily lead to art. It can help, but therapy is a mental and emotional examination.
I often...
A lot of actors become therapists. It's true.
I would often tell students when they were doing relaxation that it would feel sometimes like you're going through therapy, but it definitely is not. So it's an important... Because some people come in and they're emotionally fragile people in different states. We don't know who they are as teachers necessarily until we discover them for a while. So I think it's... I've in my experience, it's important, especially beginners who don't understand it, that you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a therapist, you're not trying to help them figure themselves out. You're teaching them an acting process. I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah, also, I don't want to know that the person is crying because their mother hit them. I don't want to know that. I don't need to know that. Only they, if they need to know that, then they go to a therapist. If it's beyond theater, I mean, sometimes there are actors or people who want to be actors where they have some deeper problems and very often can't connect and are disconnected, and I may suggest to them that they go to a therapist, because I can't do that. Does that answer? Yeah. Okay, good.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
First of all, into being, how do you choose your students?
Because probably you know better than us how it became this independent cinema and how what it means anymore.
Well, to me, independent cinema was they didn't have the money that the studios had, so they had to try but they wanted to make a film that they wanted to make, and the studios didn't want to foot the bill, so they put their pennies together and made it, But nowadays, even the independent films, you can't, it's really difficult to raise the money to do an independent film. And we have a friend, Dan, who's a filmmaker, and he wrote on Facebook, he put out a thing about that we should all protest the film industry altogether, independent and everything, and just take your iPhone and shoot a movie, whatever you want to shoot. And I did see a film called Tangerine. You can check it out. It was completely shot on an iPhone, and it was really a good film, I thought. Really good film. So, and I think that this is something that's happening in every art, and there's something about it that I love, which is anybody can paint, anybody can make music, anybody can film, and, you can do it. You just do it, It's possible that not many people will like it, but I feel that the arts are for everyone. They're for everyone to be able to express. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, just historically, from an American perspective, that especially post-war, post-World War II, European filmmaking, I think, inspired a lot of American independent films. They were not Hollywood films. The Hollywood had a studio system. Somebody had an ironclad contract that had to do 7 films for Paramount or Fox or something, and it was a system. And they made you a star, and they gave you a name, and you had to look a certain way, and you played certain characters, and so forth and so on. And they did it in big Technicolor. It was it was a different time period, and the post-World War II films in Europe were really true art films that brought cinema verite, a certain reality, a really gutty approach that was the opposite of what Hollywood was pushing. And I think this influenced, you know, the so-called independent filmmakers, of which there were sometimes stars who did it. Like I would say, for instance, John Huston directed a wonderful, turned out to be a funny film called Beat the Devil with Humphrey Bogart and Gina Lollobrigida and Jennifer Jones and these great British actors. Peter Lorre was in it, but it was independent cinema. It was a black and white film that I don't even think was a big hit back in its day, but it's like a, you know, a cult classic. So I think that was a different form of independent cinema, but of course technology and the internet has
opened that up.
Has opened that up to anybody can, literally anybody can make a film. How many people write a good story and have a great eye? And so, I mean, there's great filmmakers out there.
Ida Lupino also was an independent filmmaker. Ida Lupino, who was an actress herself, a successful movie star, and she made a bunch of, a good number of films, and they were independent.
Yeah, I mean, some of them got into the movie theaters, but they weren't the big Hollywood blockbusters that, you know, were these Technicolor, CinemaScope, so forth and so on films. But now we really just have, like, it's wide open spaces in terms of independent films. And as I was at a film festival in Florida, and, you know, they had these kind of Hollywood producer guys there, and they were saying, well, now there's maybe 3 actors that can guarantee a theatrical distribution. So you can even, nowadays, even have stars and name actors that don't guarantee you a theatrical distribution. So the
3? Only 3?
that absolutely guarantee it. Not to say that, you know, Meryl Streep does a movie that it'll get a distribution and be seen, but that like if you have those 3 actors, it's going to be in the cinema. You know, it's going to be in a movie theater. So it's a very different ballgame, and I think as far as independents go, you just have to, like, say, I'm going to do it. You know, have your vision. Somebody said to me when I did my first short, said, go ahead and do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
Then, if you say so, and the reality is, in a way, as you say, this is not anymore the star system, and it's switch with the shift is with what?
To earn a living, to make money, it is the star system.
It is a star system.
Money.
Yes.
We're talking money, yes.
Yeah,
art, that's another story.
Yeah, there's definitely a star system. You know, it just sometimes, you know, you go on Netflix and you see a movie with name actors that never was in the movie theaters. I'm just saying that doesn't mean it's necessarily an independent film. It got Hollywood money and so forth and so on. But I'm just saying that even that doesn't always pan out the same way it used to. You know, so it just, at the same time I went to the same festival, I saw a wonderful film called Copenhagen. It's an independent feature with no names in it. Maybe there was one Danish actress who played a small part in it, and she used to do Rita on this series, a Danish series. And you know, and I thought it was the best film at the festival. It didn't win Best Prize, but I thought it was the best, and it got a distribution. You saw it, yeah, and I saw it on Netflix, and I was like, yay! I'm so happy for them because it was really a terrific film, you know. So it's, as we say in America, it's a crapshoot.
That's what I was going to say.
We throw the dice and we hope it sticks, you know.
I'd like to, because you mentioned Netflix, and it's not advertising here, but do you sense or do you think that it's a sort of story crisis in filmmaking? in film, not in series, because it seems in a way that series now have more, there are more inventive in dramaturgy and narrative and stories than in feature films.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yes.
think?
Because they have more time to tell a story. They have more time. They've got like 10 episodes. That's 10 hours as opposed to 2 hours. They have more time to develop, so it's more interesting.
I think personally the limited series is best because they are not compelled to keep extending something beyond its life.
Mm-hmm.
As much as people love Breaking Bad, after a while you
It
go,
got a little ridiculous.
it's like, really? Do I believe this?
Yeah.
Do I, after a while, frankly, I turned it off. I said, okay.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing because the acting was so good on
Good.
that.
Yeah.
It's too depressing for me.
But the acting was amazing.
Yeah, the acting was great.
All the actors. There wasn't a single actor that wasn't great in that, I think. Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
She is.
I have a question for Marcia. You said that I'm sorry, I just remembered the question right now. You said that everybody can paint and can do music, and can everybody act?
Yes. Yes, if you want to, you can. I mean, it's suggested that you study. The same as with music. You want to do music, but you have to know something. You learn something about music. But yes, you can. If you've studied and you feel you can act and you want to do something, find a stage and put on a play.
If everybody could act,
Mm-hmm.
then how come there are good and bad actors? That was my question.
To me, a bad actor probably hasn't really studied. Probably hasn't really, not this technique anyway.
Well, I didn't want to mean bad acting, that mediocre. What was the
Mediocre?
Exactly, and great acting.
Yeah.
Do you think everybody can be?
Great actor? No.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody can't be a great artist
No.
or a great musician or composer? No, of course not. But that doesn't mean they can't act and there isn't a place for them,
Sure.
There's great cuisine and there's good cuisine. And there's, but it keeps you going, doesn't it? The food.
My question would be, after you finish the school in the US, what it takes to get into the industry, even in the independent industry, do you need an agent even for that?
You know what I suggest? Get to know directors and writers and work with them. And it can evolve like people like, for instance, I guess Demi and some of the better directors work with the same actors over and over again because you get, and that's how I think that's the way. Agents, managers.
The people I used for both my films, I knew them. I had
Me
worked
too.
with them. I knew their acting. I knew who they were. I worked with them. Other than Stratos, which was a gift from the gods, I knew it. Everybody. I had a history.
But
with
he'll
them.
work with Stratos again.
I'll definitely
Right.
work with Stratos again. I'm
Right.
working with him hopefully on this feature project.
That's my suggestion. Broaden your scope beyond acting. No writers, no directors, no painters, no musicians. Just immerse yourself in the world of art, of the arts. And somewhere you'll make connections. And if you have something you want to do, you find people to do it with.
Everyone needs a network, a good network.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, you can get an agent and a director, and if you're 18 and beautiful and, or handsome, maybe you'll get a TV series or something. It's possible. But if you're not, you have to have something else that connects you in there, Or I mean, some people have a confidence in themselves. They have a belief in themselves. And you can't teach that. I'm sorry. You
Right.
cannot teach somebody to have confidence and belief in themselves.
Yeah.
But if...
I struggle with that a lot.
Me too, yes. And we come from the same parents. So. Yeah.
We actually have different mothers, but we grew up together. So
He wasn't born when my father married his mother, and I grew up with my father. But my real mother now lives with me, and she's going to be 101 in April.
but my mother said to her, "What makes you think you can write?"
No, she didn't say it. Papa said it.
Oh, my father said it.
Yeah, oh, yeah. He
But-
was very
yeah.
incensed. I didn't tell him I was writing. He told him that I was writing. And my father said to him, well, how can she write? She doesn't even know English grammar. So that was, and like I wanted dance, and they gave me music lessons, you know, that kind of thing. So we don't have a lot of, we
Yeah.
haven't had.
Yeah, and my mother told me I better learn to type because, you know, you can't depend on acting.
Yeah, it was not supportive, but and it's not anything like I say that you can teach. But if you have that confidence, and you know, you walk into an office, an agent's office or a manager's office, and they feel you as being fresh and sure of, and a sense of yourself. You're not trying to be something else or fit into, you know, anything or hide. They'll see it, and then they'll put you forward. And if you have that approach with everyone, like I had a student from Portugal, and she's now a very successful Portuguese actress. She's one of the best, I think, of her age. Her name's Dalila Carmo. And she had it. She had it all along. She just had that. She exudes life. And you can't teach it. I can just help someone to see themselves and use themselves, how to use themselves so they can...
It's like you can't give them personality. It's not something
No.
to teach.
No.
No.
Or you have it or you don't.
But it's something that you can develop. You can develop. I remember Strasberg said to me when I first started with him and I did a scene, he says, do you want to be an actress, Marcia? I said, well, I am an actress. He says, no, you're not. He says, you can be. You could be a great actress. He said that to me. He said the right thing, you know. He said, you could be a great actress, but first you have to know that you don't know anything about acting. Then you can learn.
I was just thinking, like, can you tell a good actor from a bad actor just by talking to somebody?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No. Geraldine Page, who was a great American actress, she seemed like, you know, just a schlubby woman. Just, you know, like a very, you know. But she had something, boy. You know, she had a lot of boyfriends. And she would get on stage and something else would happen. She would embody a character. That's what I like about Meryl Streep. I think she just, I don't know what happens, but she becomes that character. There are a few films I've seen her do that I think, why in the world did she do that stupid movie? However good she may be, it did not save the movie. You know, but on the whole, most of the things she's done, I think her work is...
I think she can play even a tomato or a potato.
Probably,
She's
yeah.
that good that she can play anything.
Yeah.
And I also have a question. What was the hardest thing in teaching acting in the whole this experience? Like to deal with, you have to deal with a lot of students, personalities, and what was the hardest thing? I know you have a technique, you know a lot of things.
Getting older.
Getting older.
Getting older.
Why? I mean, like...
That's why, because it requires a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy, and I reached a certain point. I started painting in 2006. I started taking painting, oil classes. And I loved it. Because it's a different creative experience than theater. You know, you have to work with other people. You have to, it takes time. I paint, and right away, I mean, it's like instant gratification. I say, oh, I can see, you know, well, this is going, you know, oh, I'm liking this. And then I go keep working, and I say, oh, I liked it better before. But it's like, I can do it whenever I want. I don't need anybody else to say, okay, we'll meet at 2, you know. I do it when I want, when I can, and this is why I love it. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to spend some time doing that. And I realized that, you know, I didn't have the energy to do both. That's why a lot in life, in terms of not just creativity, probably everything, is a younger person's game. You get older, you need to retire. I was teaching at New York, the New School University, and there were 2 teachers who were a little older than me, and they were falling asleep in class. And I found myself one day being very tired and kind of drifting, and repeating things I'd been saying and doing for years. And I said, I think I have to stop, because it just wasn't fair. I didn't think it would be fair to the students to not give what they needed, what I had been able to give. You get to a point where you can't do it anymore, you know?
I think this is amazing also when the actors know that when to stop. Like, I think this is amazing if you know it and you are aware.
Yes, there's a woman named Mary Alice, a wonderful black actress in New York. She's a brilliant actress, and she did TV and film and stuff. And at a certain point, she says, I'm done. I said, but they offer you roles. She says, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. I said, well, what are you going to do? She says, live. Yeah. Whatever I want. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question. For an earlier part of the discussion, you were talking about the texts you used to do the workshop in Portugal. Beckett and Ionesco and Genet. But I was wondering if there is any place you would guide the students towards to find new writing, new place, because I get this question from young actors. Where can I find texts? Where can I find good monologues? Where can I find...
Go to the writers, poets, playwrights, in the universities, wherever, and ask them to write something for you. Or ask what they have written.
Can I also suggest that at times if you read a lot of books, sometimes you'll find material in books that, you know, are not a script, they're not a play, they're not a dialogue, and they just inspire you, and you make them into a monologue. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. It was by a reporter who reported on the Vietnam War. And it's really a stunning book. I mean, you really feel immersed in the craziness of the war. And there was some material from it that was just, I thought, brilliant. And, you know, I took a piece of it and worked on it as a monologue, you know. So there's all sorts of, you know, if you're not, we are fortunate to be part of a workshop where we have writers and actors. So, you know, we oftentimes get material, but if you're looking for, say, monologues, I mean, there are websites that have monologues. There's a, you know, in English at least I know. But oftentimes read some good books and find a piece of that book that says, wow, that gets me.
To be able to support
that I feel it in my heart, you know, and work it into a monologue.
But I think it would be good to connect with writers of your generation, you know, and
absolutely.
stimulate them and let them stimulate you and say, let's put on a play, you know. Really, you have to do it. You have to do it yourself. You don't wait for to be discovered for agents. I had our theater for 17 years. And it was a wonderful period in my life because we got to do...
Yeah.
I directed him in Hurly Burly. We did a wonderful production of Hurly Burly. And he directed me. What did you direct me in? You did, I know.
The John Ford Noonan piece.
Yeah.
What was it? Something in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Dying in Las Vegas.
Dying
right.
in Las Vegas, yeah.
And we acted together.
I created a whole set of the Las Vegas Strip on the background
right.
for an apartment.
Right. But it's, you know, if you're, don't sit idle.
Yeah.
Don't just do your office job. You know, you're young, so you should have the energy to do whatever you need to do to make money and do your art, do your theater. You should have that energy, you know.
And you know, also if you're interested in film, I mean, look, you've got your iPhones or your Android phones that shoot in 4K and look gorgeous. You know, you get some material and shoot a scene, shoot a monologue.
I'm going to start doing that with my iPhone because I have an idea for another short that I want to do. So I'm going to start. There's a little girl I want to film, her painting. I want to see her painting, and I'm going to film her, and then I'm going to film me painting, and I'm going to film 3 women painting.
So
and then we'll see what happens.
The technology makes it really easy, and then you can kind of see how you work on camera, which is, you know, obviously a little bit different than stage, but it's the same, coming from the same place.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just out there for you to take, but yeah, get your network of friends who are writers and directors and who want to work, who want to do something. Because
you never know when the next director might, your friend director might be Fellini, you know, you never know. She had a question.
How late do you think is too late to start a career in acting?
Never.
No. In fact, there were actors who had very good careers. There's an character actor named Danny Aiello who didn't start till he was in his mid-40s, I think,
right.
and worked all the time for quite a while. So it's never too late. In fact, you probably bring so much life.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much life experience that you will bring there that you don't have to work for.
In my place, I think I need to recover. I need to. I lost a lot of years till now, and I need to. I know, to demonstrate, to somebody see me, pick me, and I don't want to be needy, but I feel that frustration.
But
it's a little bit late.
It's not. And you get it's harder. It is harder when you're older, not creatively, yes. But the energy.
Yes.
The energy. So you have to start doing yourself, not pick me. Say, this is what I'm doing. Now I'm going to do it at this place. Come see me, or not, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. But sometimes you need to face. The reality that people, I know, put etiquettes or judge badly. I don't know.
You can't think about that.
Yeah, I would say don't face the reality. What you think is a reality is not necessarily, you know, it shouldn't stop you from getting up and doing work. You know, that's something I'm talking from experience where you put a block in your head. Oh, I can't do this because such and such. Just, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm stopping myself again. Wait a minute, Bob. Robert, just forget about that. Go ahead and do it. You know, I had my first film. I had the script for, I don't know, 8-10 years, just sitting around. You know, until somebody said, just do it. I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, team.
Huh?
You need a team to do.
So get a team. Other actors that you
get
know.
A team.
Yeah.
So get a team. There are people out there who would see you and say, yeah, I can see you doing this.
I could see her doing a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think sometimes it's the fact that I'm thinking, oh my God, I lost so many years not doing acting, and now it's...
I think you just have to remind yourself that you're stopping yourself and say, wait a minute, whatever your name is, forget it. I'm going to go this way.
You know something? There are a lot. I can do it with painters, for instance. I know a lot of people who they went to university, they studied art, they were artists when they were young, they started when they were 12, and they paint. And at about 20, they stopped. They'd already done it, and they stopped. I said, why did you stop? They said, I just didn't want to do it anymore. So sometimes it's better coming to it later because it's new to you. You have that energy, you know. I mean, I love painting, and I show. I make sure my paintings are seen in cafes. I have shows everywhere. So it's not too late. Believe me, never.
Do you think for, like mostly for women, because, you know, there are more characters?
Oh, yes, yes. No, but it's true.
It's true.
It is
It's
true.
true.
It is true.
So write your own material. Write out the idea that you want, and
Or
if you're
go
not
to
a
women
good writer,
poets
get
and have
somebody.
them write for you.
If you're not a good writer, write out your idea, and then get somebody you know who can write and help you with it. This feature that I worked on, I'm good at writing scenes. I'm very good with dialogue, but I knew that I would have a hard time with the whole arc of a feature script. I've written a feature script before. Long story, but you know, so I got a writing partner. I said, my friend who I know is a writer. He's a great actor too, but he's a writer, you know, and so I needed that discipline to get me through the whole script. So, fine, get the people you need to do it, and
Push the boundaries and
just to do it.
Don't live in isolation.
You know, if you have an idea for a story, write that idea down and then work with somebody.
Our theater group, I love it because I'm a member of the Actors Studio, and I for years I functioned there. I started writing while I was there, directing while I was there, but I don't go there now. I probably shouldn't say it. I just don't like going there anymore. I don't feel safe there anymore.
In what terms?
The people that are running the place, I'm not.
Politically, in this way?
Yes, yes. The people who are running the place, I just don't feel comfortable there. I don't feel safe there. So this group that we're part of, I'm so grateful for this group because I feel comfortable, confident, safe, all of that. I feel like I can do anything, acting-wise, writing, you know. So it's get with other people. If you're involved in theater or film, you have to get involved with other people, writers, directors.
Form your own group.
Yes.
Get your friends together, people who can write, people who can act,
And do it.
Get a room and meet once a week. You know, we have this group, and we have now about, 35, 40 people. Not everybody comes every week, but nobody's the leader. We each pay $10 a month to pay for the rent for the room, and that's it. And we get out work, and we've put on presentations of plays that we've written for the actors in the group.
And films have developed.
From
the group. Yeah, that's what happens. We don't produce the films. The group doesn't produce the films, but they have life beyond the group.
And we have people who are filmmakers. You know, like I'm now a filmmaker, and we have a guy from Poland who's a wonderful cinematographer and a writer and so forth and so on. So we have a network of people,
and so we feel that we're part of the performing arts community, you know, in a corner somewhere, but who cares?
Yeah, at least we have a home.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
And to find out if it works or it doesn't work, and to accept if it's not working, and to say, okay, why isn't this working? What can I do?
And then when you form your group, make sure she's part of it.
Yes.
Absolutely. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not.
You'll need her.
But I'm not kidding. You know, you can't just be 20-year-olds.
One of the rules of my group is when a new writer comes in, I say to them, now you have to write something for me.
The story, in a way, with this group makes me think about envy and generosity in the same. In the same place, because they say the artists are very individualist, they envy the others, but it seems that you are very generous. And probably many of, and also here in Romania, there are many groups that works together, but there is this probably preconception that the other will steal my idea. You've said already your idea for the next film, and everybody's in a way I don't know, afraid to be generous. How to say?
You can't be afraid and be an artist. You can't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, envy is just one of many human emotions, and you know, sometimes
I have it.
We have my wife, who's a fitness trainer, has a client who's an actress, an older actress who gets work all the time.
She works all the time.
And Marcia gets very envious, but they look nothing alike. They would never be cast for the same
Actually,
parts.
we auditioned for the same role, and she got it. She's more known than I am, number one, and she looks so different. She's
totally
really
different.
frail looking, really frail.
With white
looking.
hair and a very striking face.
Yes,
you know, very
yeah. And so I understood why she got it. I said, yes, I can see her in that part in the movie better than me, because I have an energy that is different.
Yeah. So, you know, we you know, you live with your envy. So, yeah, I get envious of somebody who made a better film than me or whatever, but so what? You know,
Yeah.
you go through that and then you move on.
It's everywhere, in any job.
Yeah.
It's in the shoe business, I'll bet.
Sorry?
I'll bet it's in the shoe business. You know, you go to a shoe store and the sales people, they're competitive. Oh, he made more sales than me last week. You know, I got to have a drink.
So, you know, that's just part of life, and you know, you can't let that stop you. You know, we live with it. That's all.
I have another question about Strasbourg. I'd like to know if you tried another technique in your coaching or acting, or
Actually, there's a friend of mine at the Actors Studio who actually, we were both in the Three Sisters. Strasbourg directed a production of it with the Actors Studio, and Sandra Seacat and I were both in this production, and she evolved and developed it's called a dream workshop. And I did take a series of, not classes, it was a workshop of this dream workshop. And she had another approach to relaxation, which I then incorporated as well in my work. Dream part of it was difficult for me because I don't remember my dreams, you know. And also there was astrology involved, and I'm just not. She has a lot of spirituality, and I don't. You know, no, I have spirituality, but it's my own. It's not connected to symbols or anything like that.
And I studied with both of them.
Yes, he studied with me, and he studied with Sandra as well.
I mean,
So
Mickey Rourke was in my class too.
Right. So I have incorporated that. I've never incorporated the Meisner technique into my work because if I think somebody can use it, I tell them go to someone who teaches Meisner, you know. I mean, you can only do so much and no more. So I have pretty much limited myself to the sensory technique and added my element elements to it, such as like what Strasberg did with me once, and he maybe did it another 1 or 2 times in the, like, I don't know how many years that I worked with him at the Actors Studio. But I utilized that in my work on a steady basis because it had such an effect on me that I thought, oh, this could be useful for people. It's like it makes the work more immediate. And we do live in a very speeded up age, don't we? Yeah. I want it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's my phone?
Right.
Any questions? It's
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. We stop.
No, go ahead.
I have two. One is about, you mentioned Brando, Marlon Brando at the beginning, and because I asked you about another technique, I remember that he said once that Strasberg never teach him anything, right. Only Stella Adler and Kazan. And if you'd like to speak a little bit about what Stella Adler technique means, and
it's very interesting, and that history between Stella Adler and Strasberg is a very interesting history because Strasberg was a director with the group theater. Stella Adler was a part of the group theater as an actress, and when he introduced the sensory exercises to the group theater, and there were personal things that started happening with the actors, she was very resistant to it. She had been a successful actress in the Yiddish theater, and she wasn't having any part of it. You know, she was very resistant. There were times when she let herself, and it would lead her to very emotional, you know, involving things, and she was resistant. But the best work that she ever did, apparently, was in the work that she did in using Strasberg. So if you read her book or listen to her tapes, even better, some of her tapes, there's a wonderful book called Stella Adler, Essays on Strindberg, Ibsen, Strindberg, and Chekhov. It's a wonderful book where she talks about her work with those authors and work with Stanislavski. And the book is based on, it's not something that she wrote. It was gathered from tapes. So the author transcribed the tapes. And in it, it's very interesting because she was constantly trashing Strasberg, constantly trashing him, you know. And, you don't use your emotions, you use the character's emotions, you don't have to use your memories, you want to use your imagination. And then she would say, you know, but when you walk in that door, what is the smell like when you walk in? Well, that's the sensory work, you know. She would say, you don't use that, you use your imagination, you know. Well, I always had a difficult time imagining what was in the script. But I could say, you know, like maybe in the script it says, oh, lilies smell so wonderful, and I might not like the smell of lilies, but I love gardenias. The smell of gardenias is like my favorite, actually. You know, that and lilacs. So the technique was very useful to me, so that I could use what affects me in the way the character is affected. And even that is flexible, because one day it might not affect me quite as much as on another day, and I have to accept that. That's truth. I have a shirt that I wore the other day. It says, "Art is truth." Okay.
I would it's funny that when you talk about imagination, I would sometimes teach in like a group improvisation, and I would say, okay, you're on another planet, and there's this and there's that. Well, there's really nothing in our imagination that we don't have an idea about, an experience about. We don't imagine things that we absolutely have no idea, you know, some space creature that doesn't exist, or that does exist but we've never seen, you know. So we imagine things, but out of our own experience. So we can have an imaginary plants, an imaginary building, an imaginary anything else, and we can still work on that imaginary stuff in a sensory way.
Yes, I one time was working on a play, and place is very important to me, a place that I know, because it grounds me on stage or in film. It connects me. But I felt the need for French doors, you know, to be able to walk out, you know, like, maybe it was Cherry Orchard, I don't know what I was doing, but so I added French doors to my place, you know. Sometimes I have no place in my experience that helps me with the script, so I may use a painting that I can create that painting, the elements of that painting. You know, I know what wood feels like. I know what glass feels like. I know what a tree looks like. I know, you know, so I can create from something that I mean, I've not been in Van Gogh's room, you know, where his shoes are, and the table, and the, you know, the door. But I can create it from the painting. I can create those shoes, even though I've never had those shoes. I can touch, I know what leather feels like. I know what worn leather is like, where it's a little bit more worn, where it's less worn. Those details, actually, I would say art involves details.
Even I once had people imagine that they were like in a tropical forest, for instance. And some of these kids never been to a tropical forest. But, you know, I said, well, what do you think it is? It's hot. It's moist. There's animal sounds around you. Maybe there's snakes. You know, there's leaves, that big, weird leaves. So try to see those leaves. Go ahead and touch that big leaf. What's up there? Is there, you know, what are those sounds that you're hearing? Listen to the sounds in the tropics. You know, whatever their idea of the sounds. Doesn't matter if they're right or they're wrong. They're trying to hear something that they have an imagination about. So they're using the sensory, and they're creating this reality, this whole atmosphere of the place. And it makes them feel things and behave in a different way.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was trying to get at before, about how the sensory work stimulates my imagination.
Other questions? During your career, did you find any differences between American acting and European acting?
Good acting is good acting everywhere.
No, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
good acting. Differences. How acting is made in the United States and how it's made in Europe.
Well,
Any kind of,
I think the Europeans have a lot more patience than Americans. You know, we're
or the movies are patience.
huh?
The movies, the European movies are much more.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I have a friend that did a film, and it's very slow. And I said, you should enter that into European festivals, because it will probably do well.
Good. The last one, I have the last question. Does exist talent, and if, what it is talent?
It's what I was
Because
talking about.
you were talking about gift and all these things, but this word talent, in a way, is a very heavy word for actors. I don't know, or people that want to act. If I'm not talented, I can't do this.
That's not
if
true.
I'm not, what is talent?
cares?
Okay.
You have it or you don't. It doesn't matter if you don't have talent. You can develop art. You know, it might not be as great as somebody who has talent and craft. It might not be that great, but it'll be what it'll be, and it'll be worthwhile, you know.
And you know,
I celebrate the ordinary, actually. I celebrate it because that's what life on the whole is from day to day. It's ordinary, and we should celebrate it because that's life. I mean, other things are extraordinary. Extraordinary. We always want extraordinary.
And honestly, you know, going back to what Marcia said before, you know, putting in all that time studying and working on the craft. Some people it comes to like that, and some people, after 3-5 years, boom, it explodes. So there's no rule that says the one size fits all. Right. You know, everybody's different. They have a different being. So but don't make a judgment about it, especially for yourself.
Right. But do work hard.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, some people, you know, they get up and bang, they're great.
Don't work hard.
Yeah, don't. Yes.
Don't expect for things to just happen.
Yeah.
If you are talented, okay.
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Actually, Lee used to say about talent that there are people who are very talented and will never be great actors, almost because of their talent, because they think they don't have to work. That was me as a dancer, actually. I had great talent as a dancer. I had natural talent, natural ability, so I didn't work. And so I couldn't get past a certain point. Hmm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just Ulanova, who had a back. She started dancing because she had a curvature or something with her back, and she couldn't walk, and she became, like, of her period, the greatest ballerina of all time. You know, work and talent.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you also, you. And tomorrow is another day for screenings and talking.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll be here. Okay. Thank you very much.